You ready to get to it? ZOOMCAST. Now live. Log in and check it out. Matt Grima.
We are on live. Welcome, everybody. We are back. ZOOMCAST has returned after a slight hiatus, and I think that has a lot to do with the fact that we as estate agents have been able to get back to work and do what we do best. For those of you who have been tuning in, thank you. I'm Matt Grima, and today in the return bout, we've got one of the all-time greats from the Burundara office. He's one of our directors. He's a living testament to the line that nice guys don't have to finish last. I speak, of course, of the great Duane Wolowiec. G'day, Duane.
How are you, Matt? Thanks so much for having me today.
Thanks for being on. Now, where are you, mate? You look like you've skipped across to Bali or Hawaii. What's going on there?
Look, I must say I sped home from my last appointment, and I just needed to get out of the suit. I'm still getting used to wearing a suit again, which is unbelievable because for that lockdown period, it was board shorts, t-shirts, and occasionally a shirt on top and board shorts below. But so I've just ducked home and just out in the back area. Just to be perfectly honest, just having a little bit of distance between myself and the kids, and just so they don't come out sort of demanding, not demanding, but asking what's for dinner and those type of things. So yes,
Are you looking,
so hopefully it's not too noisy in the background.
No, you're good. You're looking fit, Duane. Have you just done a few chin-ups or push-ups prior to jumping on ZOOMCAST just to make sure that you're at peak physical condition?
Yeah, thanks, Matt, for noticing. At the age of almost 50, I must say the pump doesn't last for long. So yeah, straight down, do a quick 10, and then you'll see me deflate anyway during this session. So, but thank you for noticing.
Well done, well done. Now, for those who haven't tuned in before, we are on Apple iTunes, we're on Spotify, we're on all platforms where you can listen to and download a podcast, and whether it's on a morning walk for a coffee or after winding down after a tough day to maybe listen to some of the best in the industry. And we've certainly got one of those today in Duane Wolowiec. Duane, a lot of people at Marshall White know you and have a great relationship with you from a work perspective, but today's more about trying to get an understanding of the man behind the man and talking through your journey through the ranks. As I've quickly learnt through doing these, there is no conventional path to becoming an estate agent and certainly a good estate agent. And I thought we might start at the beginning. We might go back and where it all began for you as a youth, as a kid. Where did you grow up, and what were your goals and aspirations as a youngster?
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Look, I had so I'm nearly 50, so I'm 50 in January, so I have to wind the clock a fair distance back in terms of time. But now, look, I had a pretty humble upbringing. I grew up out in the outer southeastern suburbs in a place called Wanturna South, which is sort of beyond Glen Waverley, near Knox City Shopping Centre, if anyone knows that landmark. It's so I had a sort of a basic upbringing there. Where I grew up, I was in one or two streets in this little subdivision, and it was surrounded by apple orchards. We didn't have the great overseas trips or anything like that, like our kids are sort of experiencing now. So it was a trip down to Phillip Island. That was our holiday, and so I grew up at Wanturna South, and ended up going to Glen Waverley High School. And academically, I wasn't sort of someone that really embraced that. I was more interested in sort of getting out the footy field at recess and lunch, and then afternoon recess, and just kick the footy with my mates and enjoy that side of things. So I was more of a sports orientated person rather than someone that was focused in academics. So, yep. But as a result, I decided that I wanted to be an AFL footballer. So I was fortunate enough to be asked to come along and train at North Melbourne, and I was at the age of 16 and 17, and that was for the under-19s. And Dennis Pagan was the coach. If you know your footy coaches, he was a very successful footy coach, and I trained with North Melbourne for about 3 years. But the problem was I actually was so convinced I was going to go into the senior ranks that I started sort of losing sight of how important schoolwork was. So I basically just parked that aside and focused on footy. and I fell behind in school. That was the bottom line, and I just found it very difficult to catch up, Matt. So I decided that school may not be for me. So, and back then, back in the 80s, you could sort of leave school a bit earlier, and you didn't need to do your BCE. So I left halfway through year 11, and I went into an apprenticeship as a cabinet maker.
Yeah, right.
Not far from where the school was in Aristotle Road. I'll never forget that because I had some nightmares about that experience. But anyone who knows what an apprenticeship's like, and what experience that you do have as an apprentice, well, it's not always rosy. In fact, the tradespeople do treat. Back then, they used to treat the apprentices quite poorly. And whilst I sort of enjoyed the trade, the trade itself, the tradespeople used to, lock you in. They locked me in a bin, for example, and they were chucking pieces of timber at the bin and just tormenting me as as a young apprentice. And I wasn't the only apprentice that was getting that sort of treatment. So that was a real experience. And
yeah,
I must say, I thought, maybe this is not for me.
Can I hit pause on that, Duane? There's a little bit to unpack. So let's go back to North Melbourne for a sec when you got the great Dennis Pagan coaching the under-19s, and he would have come from tutelage from the great Kevin Sheedy, I reckon, as well. Who was around? What sort of players were around back then that maybe progressed through to the senior ranks, and what did you take out of that experience?
Yeah, just about every player except for myself got progressed, sadly, Matt. But no, look, I think the players that most people would probably identify with is Anthony Rock.
Yep.
Anthony Stevens. We all know Anthony Stevens from what he went through during his time playing footy.
Yep.
A lot of people do anyway. Jose Romero, Brett Allison. Yeah. There was, I'm just trying to think of who else might be there. Wayne Carey was around the football club a lot, but he sort of jumped above the under-19s and went straight into the seconds. Played a lot of seconds football before he progressed into the senior levels. But it was a great environment, but very, very competitive. And North Melbourne back then in the under-19s was a very, very strong team. And it was hard actually to get a Guernsey. So I do recall playing and at Arden Street, and we played against St Kilda and Craig Davenport, his name was. He was a great footballer, and I had my opportunity to play on him, and I just recall him, standing on my shoulders, taking a mark, and then getting dragged off the ground. Then I got put back onto the ground, and I was nervous. And every time I got the ball, I did something wrong with it and kicked into the man in the mark. I'd made all these really fundamental errors that I think I just put too much pressure on myself. And sadly, that was probably one of my last games that I played with North Melbourne, and before sort of getting asked to go back to my local club, which at that stage was Scoresby Football Club, which is out in the outer eastern, and it was first division football. It was great footy, but certainly not to the same level as what North Melbourne was, that's for sure.
So you quickly realise that perhaps the footy dream's not going to work out. You get your hands dirty in applying a trade and cabinet making, and then an apprentice builder. Is that right? How did that come about?
Yeah. Well, look, I decided, and I decided to leave the cabinet making and then go into house framing. So I like the idea of being outdoors, a little bit, perhaps a little bit more diverse in terms of you're on site at one place and you might move to another address and work. So I like that sort of I guess flexibility. I did what every good tradesman would do, and I went out and bought a ute, and then I also I went to the next level and bought a blue heeler pup, and lived the dream for probably about 12 months, and again, sadly, and maybe I just needed to toughen up a little bit, but the tradies are pretty tough there, very demanding on the apprentices. And I have this distinct memory of sort of being up on the second floor of this house frame. So they hadn't had all the floor laid yet. It was just all the beams. And I was using a sledgehammer just to knock some timber together so that it can be ready for nailing.
Yep.
And I had all those really exciting jobs. And and then the tradesperson, who was a big man, he looked like Chewbacca. In fact, he was probably a little bit more hairier than Chewbacca.
Right.
And he said, he yelled out to me, grab the sledgehammer. And I went to grab the sledgehammer, and I actually knocked it as I was losing a little bit of balance, and it fell down and actually hit him in the lower part of his back. And I'll never forget that, because I can recall him saying, could you please come down? But he said that in different languages. I'm just trying to be a little bit polite on the podcast, Matt. But and I can recall sort of holding on to, and it was a windy day, I was holding on to the some of the beams and so forth, just so the wind didn't blow me off. I weighed about I think about 70 kilos maximum back then, and anyway, I just wouldn't come down until the end of the day virtually. And then I realised maybe building is not for me.
Did you think he was going to give you a flogging or a talking to?
Look, I thought I thought I was in a bit of strife. As it turned out, he did cool down, and I think it was a good strategy for me just to stay up there for the balance of the day.
Yes.
But I mean, these guys were hardened men, and I was just a little kid in an adult's game. Yep. And I know a lot of people do start young, but I just don't think that was in my DNA to be a tradie. So I had to look at something different.
Have you seen the start of the great Happy Gilmore movie, Duane, where Happy shoots the boss with the nail gun in the head?
No, I do. It was many years ago I saw that, but I do recall that.
Happy and you have got a few things in common, I reckon. So how do you get from the sledgehammer in the back of the boss to sledgehammering your own staff as a director at Marshall White? How did you get from the stubby shorts to the suit and become an estate agent?
Yeah, it's funny. A lot of people say they stumble into real estate, Matt, and I was probably very much down that path as well. I got into the fitness industry. I thought that was something that I always had a passion about. So I worked for a number of years in the fitness industry. Firstly, starting as a fitness instructor many years ago. This is before mobile phone time. And mobile phones were just coming in actually. And I remember the big bricks that we used to carry around at the time. But I got into the fitness industry and developed some really good friendships and I guess connections with people who were members. And one of those guys was he was a principal of a real estate company, and said, look, how would you like to catch up and just chat about earning a little bit more money than what you probably are earning at the moment as a fitness advisor? And I thought, well, geez, we earn pretty good money wiping down sweaty bench presses, so it's going to be hard to beat. So we caught up for a bit of a brief chat, but I said, look, I'm not ready for that commitment, which I wasn't. I was in my sort of early 20s, 21, 22 sort of age at that point. I left that and got into sales, but in the fitness industry. So I was selling fitness equipment and all those type of things to gymnasiums. And but this guy must have kept my number, and he phoned me again a couple of years down the track and said, look, I know that it's been a couple of years since we last caught up. So we did a real great follow-up nurture call. Good. And we caught up and he convinced me. I didn't need a lot of convincing, but he suggested maybe we give it a go, and I got into it. I got into real estate that way, and I started at a company called KR Peters Real Estate, which is based in Clinton South, and I was selling little subdivision blocks of land in the beginning. I stayed there for probably about 8 months, man.
We're talking 20 plus years ago, Duane. So we're talking, I think
1997.
1997. Okay. So in 1997, where are we in terms of things like online real estate? What was the world like for a new bloke in real estate? Was it the old adage of here's a desk, here's a phone, here's the phone book, go nuts?
Yeah. Look, it very much was that. I mean, it was I guess the marketplace I worked in wasn't an easy marketplace because they did have a residential side as well as the subdivision side, and we'd work. It was 7 days a week.
Yeah.
That was one thing. Our home telephone numbers were on our business cards, so that was like a real sort of intrusion. Normally you'd switch off from work, and you try to switch off anyway, and you'd get a phone call on a Sunday, 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock in the evening, from somebody just inquiring on a property. So look, it was very different. It was very different to the fitness industry, of course, but again, the principles remain the same, Matt. It was always about building relationships. It was always about being easy to deal with. Stewie Evans, my business partner, he and I run a team together, and Stewie well, of course, Matty, but he always talks about being easy to deal with, and I guess I try to adopt that attitude very early on in my business. Be polite, be grateful, do those type of things. And I was able to sort of build some good momentum very early, but I realised it wasn't the marketplace that I wanted to. And I moved up into the Dandenong Ranges, Belgrave and Olinda and Sassafras. It's lovely. It's a lovely part of the outer part of Melbourne, but I really enjoyed that part because it was lifestyle. It was just beautiful, and it was a lovely environment to be in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I had
I was after about.
I was going to say, Duane, I had Stewie Evans down on the run sheet, but I was going to hit him a little bit later, but I might go there now. You two have got, and I'm not sugarcoating this or just saying it to impress you, but you two have probably got as good of a business partnership within the four walls of a great company like Marshall White that I've seen in over 5 years of being there. Your mates off field, your great business partners on field. Maybe explore for those that have. There's a lot of people that in recent times have started a team. We've obviously gone through a very tough 2020 with COVID, and thinking about your entire setup and financially, emotionally. Talk me through that relationship with Stewie, how it started, and what are sort of the key 2 or 3 points that make you a successful duo.
Yeah, well, Stewie and I are approximately 10 years apart. So we as far as an age point of view, you wouldn't know that. I mean, I don't know whether it's I'm immature and Stewie's mature, but we do seem to really gel together really well. And we knew each other prior to teaming up, clearly, because we worked together. But I'd met Stewie a few times in a social environment, and I sort of connected with him at that level. But when he started Marshall White, he and I would communicate a lot, and we had a nice friendship, but I wouldn't say we were super close.
Yep.
Stewie was ready to make a move. He was working in another team at the time, and I'd sort of been out by myself, and we just decided to have a bit of a discussion around how that might look as a team. And what I liked about Stewie is Stewie's incredibly disciplined. Like, he's got that. He's systematic. He's disciplined. He does the basics. He does the basics well. And I probably was a little bit more loose in that area, where I still had some disciplines about what I did, but I didn't have the structure that kept me on track. I could be distracted quite easily, and yes, Matt. So I think we could all relate to that. So we put our forces together, and I think we always said, look, if we're going to join forces, Matt, we wanted to make sure that 1 + 1 didn't equal 2, but it equaled at least 3.
Right.
So we knew that we could offer so much more to the marketplace if we joined our forces together than what we do as individuals, and that was our attitude going into it.
How do you make that decision, Duane? Most people think that real estate and real estate agents are very much a my database, my client, my nurture, my risk versus my reward. How do you encompass team in a real estate career? Did you think that 2 heads are better than one? What you offer, I don't have, and what I offer, you don't have. So if we collectively put our strengths together, we could further our income and further our enjoyment in the game. Was that the basic premise?
Yeah. Well, absolutely, Matt. I think you nailed it there. I think strengths and weaknesses and so forth. We looked at. I don't want to sound corny when I say the yin and the yang, but
Yep.
I mean, Stewie's certainly got a harder edge to him than I do in terms of, so he can, if we are having some discussions around, whether it be around our team structure, he can certainly he can sort of steer it in a particular direction based on his where I can be a little bit softer in areas. But I think that works really well for both of us when we're speaking with clients. We can provide a really nice balance and to our clients. And I just want to really clarify that Stewie's, even though I'm saying he's got a harder edge, he's very, 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 very good at being very sympathetic and empathetical when he's with his clients too. So I want to be really clear there. But I think that no, I just thought we did complement each other, Matt, and I think that was probably something that in my previous teams that that I had and I was part of, I probably didn't have quite that sort of right balance. And I think that that's what we've been able to do really well. The other thing is, I think we sort of from the outset we made sure that we checked our egos at the door. We didn't. This team wasn't going to be driven by ego. It was going to be driven by what's right for the client, what's right for the greater good of Marshall White, and certainly what's good for us.
Yeah.
And we wanted to build a good team that shared that philosophy around us. So we've got certainly a substantial size team now, and that's been based over an 8-year period.
You've done that, Duane. You're again. I work in the Port Phillip office. You work in the Burundara office. We've got a nice relationship, and I've always looked upon Team Wolowiec Evans as one that a lot of people see as a bit of a destination team. You've got a great lineup of people with you at the moment. Maybe briefly touch on your current team setup and who does what.
Yeah, so I think it always starts with really great administration support, Matt. So we've got Natasha Dixon and Felicity McCorkill, who have been with us for quite a number of years. In fact, Flick's been with us for 5 years. Tasha's not too far behind now, and they are just unbelievable. I mean, they run the back end of our team. So we're not really handling files as such. All we're trying to do, Stuart and I, is really list, sell, negotiate, and prospect. I think we're not auctioneers, Stuart and I. We have auctioned in the past, both of us respectfully, but we've decided that's not what we want to be doing. So we have the girls sort of handle that aspect of our business in terms of setting up files, communicating with our vendors in the sense of making sure that their campaign is up and running. And then Stuart and I ensure that we're sort of handling that communication with the key buyers and of also the vendors. We do have some support from salespeople within our roles in our team. So we've got Tim Mersel, who is a fantastic auctioneer, a great agent.
Yep.
And we have Daniel Williams, or we call him Big Dermy because he's just a big unit, and a great guy. He'll run through a brick wall for us, and he's a great agent in his own right. He's a ripper, isn't he, Matt? We've also got Anthony Smith, who is a mature age recruit. He's in fact the same age as I am, but he's a terrific agent. And we've also got Lisa Liu, just to provide a bit of balance of gender. Lisa's fantastic, and she's also fantastic because she speaks not only English, but she speaks Mandarin, which is so crucial in the Burundara market.
Yeah,
that's our team, and it's a good sized team.
Not to get too preachy, Duane, because I know that's not your style, but you've seen a lot of teams in your time at Marshall White be formed, and not just at Marshall White, by the way, throughout your entire real estate journey. People like to team up or create a little pod within their own office. If you could walk around office to office, be it at Marshall White or any estate agency in Victoria, and say, hey, guys, I reckon if you get X, Y, and Z right, you're going to go a long way to having some personal team success. What do you think some of those attributes might be?
I think that maybe firstly, people are looking for that perfect fit. And I reckon a lot of people let perfection get in the way of progress.
Yeah.
So, don't jump into a partnership. Clearly don't do that because you can waste a lot of time doing those type of things. But if you feel, hey, this feels right, maybe trust your gut instinct and go with that. I think also if you are a team leader and you become a team leader, be prepared to let go of things. I mean, you can't do everything and be everything to everyone. You've got to be able to let go of certain elements of the business and trust your team members that they're going to do a great job. I know that Tim Merstal is handling a property with me at the moment in Hawthorn East.
Yep.
And I know it's in great hands. I don't need to know every micro detail of the property, the campaign, because I trust that he's going to do the right thing.
Yeah.
As long as I'm communicating clearly with my vendor, our vendor, and we're delivering on what we said we're going to do, and or more, and then importantly that results in a great outcome for the vendor. Then I think collectively we've done a brilliant job. So you've got to be able to let go of certain tasks, but I think also have the ability to understand, and also the attitude also, Matt, to say, let's have a bit of fun doing this.
Yeah.
You know, this consumes a lot of our life.
Yeah.
And I don't know, Stewie and I have a great deal of fun. And in fact, our wives often laugh about it to say that, you know, we're not worried about you guys running off off with other women. We're worried about you two running off together, because we do have a lot of fun in each other's company. And I must say, that's really important, because I love getting up and I love going, like I've missed that. And I'm sure you have too, Maddie, being in the office and interacting with your colleagues. But that's something I've missed that with Stu and also the other colleagues within the Hawthorn office. But certainly, Stu in particular.
I'm going to put you on the spot. You'd hate what I'm about to say, but because it's not your style. But likability, Duane, we have People's Choice Awards at Marshall White, and I reckon you might have had to rent out an entire room in your house to just house all the trophies and awards that have come through for most popular team member, or, you know, most valuable player, or most helpful, or whatever the case may be. You're clearly well known and well liked and well respected by a lot of your peers. Likability, is it something that you've worked at? Do you think it's a natural trait? Do you think you can get better at it if you maybe don't have it? Is it something that you value?
Yeah. Oh, thanks, Matt. I mean, look, it is a bit of an awkward topic to talk about.
Agree.
But
particularly with two blokes.
as you said, but yeah.
Yeah.
Well, firstly, thanks for saying that. And look, I am grateful, obviously, when I get awarded those awards, and it's quite humbling. And when you do get them, I must say, I promise you one thing. I want to make it really clear. I don't campaign for those awards. I promise you that.
Thank you for putting it out there. No, that's good.
Yeah, I just thought I'd get in there quickly before Stewie jumps on the next podcast and says something. But look, I just wanted to, I think my dad's one of those guys. My father's, bug just went in my face then, but my father's he's similar. My sister's quite similar as well. My younger sister is, a few years younger than I am. We've always been just friendly people. We don't like confrontation. I think there's no hiding the fact that I don't like them. Yes, I have to, in our line of work, Matt, sometimes we have to have those hard conversations, and I'm certainly prepared to do that. But it's not something that comes naturally to me. I prefer to be nice, polite, courteous, all those things. I think that's something that my dad and my mum, but certainly my father, he's a hard Polish man. He brought me up in that environment to make sure that you're respectful to women and grateful to people that go out of their way to help you. And look, that's just something it's been. I guess it is in my DNA, Matt. To answer your question, I think if you try too hard to be a likable person or whatever it might be, it comes across as non-authentic. And I don't think that's going to work for you. I think most of us in our business, thankfully at Marshall White, I can say, are all very likable people in their own way. So, but I think being authentic to yourself is the key.
Yeah. No, well said, Duane. And following on from that, you're obviously a husband. You've got 3 great kids. I think you were saying off camera, you've got a 20-year-old, an 18-year-old who's just gone through going through VCE, and a 15-year-old. How important is it to you firstly as a husband, and secondly as a father, to ensure that the traits that you showcase in your work life also balance through in your personal life, and your children get the sort of teaching and upbringing that you were fortunate enough to have with your parents?
Yeah, look, I must say I haven't been perfect as a father and as a husband as well. I would imagine if you asked Annette. In fact, we won't get her on the camera.
I was going to say let's bring her on.
But I would say that that with that I've had to work at it, because I mean you give everything to the marketplace, and I have been guilty of coming home and then not being the best version of myself as a father and a husband.
Yeah.
And I've had to pull myself up on that, Matt, a number of times. And you know, and you've got to work on those things. I mean, as I said, I'm 50. I've been in the industry for over 20 years, and you learn how to deal with things. So little things like when I pull up into the driveway, I'll make sure that I return my calls while I'm in the car. Don't come in. I don't want to come inside on the phone. You know, negotiating and things, and sort of brushing the kids off to the side. I've never wanted to do that. Have I been guilty of doing it? I have, but I'm conscious about it. I make sure I put my phone on Do Not Disturb, so I'm not being disturbed at that time, and I can be present with the children. My kids have, I think they would say that they've got a pretty good dad. Again, they'd probably also say that he isn't perfect, but that's okay, because I want them to understand that life's not perfect. And I also want them to value the little things in life. I want them to know that yes, we've had our financial struggles before, Annette, myself and my wife Annette.
Yeah.
I want them to understand that we've worked, and mum and dad work incredibly hard to be able to live a good quality of life. So I try to always share good principles with them, Matt. I think you know, we're very blessed in real estate. It does allow us to have good quality of life in most cases if we become reasonably good at what you do. Yeah. And so I hope I haven't got off track a bit with that, but I just
There's no track here, mate. This is as raw and uncut as it gets. If people are still listening, then we're well ahead of where we might have been otherwise. But it's interesting, Duane. You don't. I love that story. You don't necessarily come from money. You've certainly grinded away for a long period of time. You now seem to be in a position in life, not to get too Brady Bunch about it, but things are going well for you, and your kids are growing up in a different environment and a different world to what you grew up in at their age.
Yeah.
Is it tough, Duane, to find a balance between wanting to give your kids everything in the world and make their life as easy as possible for them, because you look back and remember some of the tougher times that you had as a youth, but also ensure that they still have a bit of the mongrel or the hard edge in them that, you know, when they need to scrap, they can scrap and fend for themselves?
Yeah, look, absolutely. I mean, I think, you know, we've been on some lovely holidays, particularly over the last, say, 5 years, Matt, more so, because, you know, it's taken a while to really build that momentum and so forth, and you know, sending kids through the schooling systems. It's, oh my goodness, it's I'm so glad it's nearly over for me. Let me say that.
Yeah.
So you get used to eating 2-minute noodles in the early stages, because that's probably as good as it gets. But look, yeah, absolutely. I think the good thing is Annette's very down to earth. So I'm very lucky with Annette. Her expectations of holidays or cars and houses and things like that is, she's never said let's keep striving for more and more and more, because what we've had this discussion, her and I, multiple times, but we just know that there's never a there, like there's always a next there, so you've got to be satisfied. And look, I just think, you know, like for example, Annette's driving in the same car she's been driving for the last 5 or 6 years. And sorry, 7 or 8 years, my apologies. And I'd say, honey, do you want to, no, I'm happy with that. We don't know anything on the car, so let's just leave it at that. So we're very blessed. I'm blessed. She's got great principles. Our kids see that, Matt. They don't just say, Mum, Dad, can you slip me 100 or whatever it might be. It's not like that at all in our household. And I think I am blessed, and I think a lot of our children's balances come from Annette. Yeah. I'm not talking myself down, but I think Annette's been fantastic in my life. So I'm very, very blessed on that front.
How long have you been married, mate?
Nearly 24 years.
Yeah, wow.
So it's a long time now. It's
your real estate career and your marriage have gone hand in hand.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I mean, spot on. Yeah. So she's only known me. Well, having said that, I mean, we had to sit down before getting into real estate, Matt, and have that discussion. Is that a great career path for you? You're gonna be away for a lot of weekends, and you're gonna be busy on the weekends. Is that something you really want to do? So she's been sort of there from the beginning, and yeah, as I said, I'm very blessed to have someone in my life like Annette who is just a quality person.
Do you think any of the three Wolowiec kids will go into real estate at some stage?
Look, I don't know whether they will, Matt, because they've seen me come home during the tougher markets, and I think that that's probably enough to scare them. Although I reckon that my second child would be very good at it. I think she's got a very good ability to build rapport.
Yep.
And I think that she could do quite well.
Yeah.
And I think females do really well in real estate too. So
they do.
So we need more quality females like the Sarah Woods and the Madeline Kennedys and so forth.
Exactly right. Now, good to know the background, Duane. Let's shift forward and talk through 2020. We all know it's been the most bizarre year of many people's existence. We're going to be sitting back one day telling grandchildren about the time we all had a curfew, we were wearing masks, we weren't allowed out to see friends or family. It's sort of our version of wartime without getting too woo-woo about it. But what has your year been like? What's your mindset been like? We all know that you're a crazy positive guy, and that's one of the reasons I got you on here, is to pump myself up, to be honest. But what's your year been like? You talked about separation of work and family. It's all been all encompassed this year. How tough's it been?
Yeah. Oh, look, it has been tough, Matt. I think, you and I were talking a little bit off air, but we talk about going at 100 miles per hour day to day, and juggling so many balls that are up in the air, and then go from that to, hey, I'm at home. I'm sitting around with my board shorts on and a t-shirt, and I can't go out to the marketplace, and I can't do what I do, and that was a real change of pace. I think it was a bit of a shock initially, and then I sort of thought, okay, well, and again, touching on your point being positive, I thought, how can I take advantage of this time? And so many people said hopefully we won't see this ever again in our lifetime, in terms of where we are locked down and we can't do anything. So I tried to challenge myself in other areas. I thought, well, how can I get better at playing guitar? How can I do some of the things that I really enjoy doing, but I don't normally have the time to do? So I started reading more, which I'm a terrible reader. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and certainly your ZOOMCAST, of course, Matt's very high up on the priority list.
Thank you.
But I love listening to podcasts, and I love doing those type of things. So I just did more of what I love doing. I enjoyed keeping myself fit.
We can tell that t-shirt's busting at the seams around the bicep region, Duane. That's
when I'm wearing my son's t-shirt, Matt. That's why.
You've taken the great Matt Pilios's dress sense. That's what he does.
Oh, yeah, he's got the guns though to back it up.
He does. He's a very fit man. Very fit man. What sort of podcasts and books have you been into throughout lockdown? People are always interested in that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I do listen to a little bit of real estate podcasts like Josh Fegan, and you and I are big fans of Josh Fegan. It's all about getting inside your business. Yes, and but I tried to steer a little bit away from that, Matt. So I was listening to a lot of whether it be Tony Robbins or sporting podcasts where you listen to successful sports people and how they prepare for their events and all those type of things. So I enjoyed just looking at broader things rather than just real estate.
Yeah.
Reading wise, pretty much the same. I mean, I've always wanted to be a rock star, Matt. I think it's beyond me. I hate to say it, but despite my electric guitar and my Fender amplifier that I've got in the front room, gathering dust. Reading a book on Dave Grohl. He's just and Peter Garrett and Paul Kelly, and I love reading those type of things, and just because they think so creatively, and inherently I'm not a creative person. I'm just more of a I guess customer service focused person, but you read these creative people and you think, God, I've lived such a sheltered life, or I wish my mind would think a bit like them. So I just enjoy doing things like that. Look, I must say it's just afforded that time to do that, and sadly, all that's been put on the shelf for the moment now as we're back into back out into the marketplace and the battlefield.
I'd say, speaking of Battlefield, one thing I've absolutely loved at the moment, I don't know if you're watching it, SAS Australia. Are you into that?
I've watched the commercials, and I must say I wanted to watch it, but I get sort of bullied in the house a bit, Matt, with the kids, particularly my two oldest daughters, but they just dominate the TV and what we watch. So yeah, I would love to watch it.
I think it's on 7+ anyway, so you don't have to look far to be able to catch up on it. It's TV, and it's dramatic, and there's probably a little storyline in it, but showcasing some of the mental strength needed to do what these blokes and ladies, of course, do in the SAS program is nothing short of extraordinary, and it's just given us a little snippet into their world, and it's been. Look, I'm sure there's many people that watch it. It is an absolute beauty. If you can get onto it, it's quite good. It's very different.
Have you heard of the guy, Matt, David Goggins?
I have.
Yeah, the SAS guy, Navy SEAL.
I reckon I've read about 70% of the book.
Yeah, I've got the book as well, and I've been reading it. The problem when I read, I don't know about you, Matt, but I read books, and I've got multiple books on the go.
Yeah,
and because my concentration span, I get a little bit sick of it, so I go on to the next book, and they end up sort of all morphing into one book.
Yep.
And I don't know what I'm actually reading at the end of the day. They're just words.
Yeah.
So, but David Goggins, I must say, and you see him on Instagram and on YouTube and things like that, and he's just he's so inspiring, that guy.
Yeah, definitely. Well, there's a little bit of that world in this show. So I'd advise anybody who's looking for something a little bit different to tune in. It's not the puff piece that you might get for primetime television in Australia at the moment. So it's pretty good. Duane, I reckon we've covered an array of topics. You've been an absolute pleasure to have on, and you were somebody I've wanted to have on since I started doing this, and I thought who better than the great Duane Wolowiec to get on the return episode of ZOOMCAST. Your clients, Duane, you're a heavy hitter in the city of Boroondara. If somebody's looking to sell a piece of real estate, buy a piece of real estate, or even maybe an agent of all skill sets, not just young agents, that want to have a coffee with you and pick your brain about your journey and some advice or help that you might be able to provide, where are some of the best places that people can get in touch?
Oh, look, I think clearly on the mobile, give me a call anytime. I mean, I think I've never forgotten the fact that when I first started, particularly at Marshall White, Matt, that guys like James Redfern, James Tosterton, some of the names that are still there at Marshall White, and some names that have actually moved on to different things. They're always very, very great, giving of their time with me, and I'm forever grateful for that. So I always want to sort of give back if I can. If I can sort of instill any sort of I guess principles or skills or anything like that to anyone, it'd be an absolute pleasure. So so call or email anytime, no problems at all, Matty.
Highly recommend it. You've helped me throughout some circumstances in the past, Duane. I've never felt, even though you're a director and 23 years in the business, I've never felt embarrassed or gun shy to pick up the phone and give you a call and ask for your advice and opinion on things. You're one of the greats. You're very helpful, and thanks again for giving us some time today on ZOOMCAST.
Thanks. It's been a pleasure. Thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Mate. Thanks, Duane.